Ma'at. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. Welcome to Kemetic Ascension. Anken Ma'at. How are you? I hope you are all doing well. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. Please enter. Come on in. Looking forward to seeing you all. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. Please come in. I'm so looking forward to seeing you all. I certainly was I certainly was out of it last Kemetic Ascension. I believe I had the flu. I was tested for COVID and tested negative, but it wiped me out. So I'm so pleased to be back here with you. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. Oh, wait a minute. Our Instagram has not gone live. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure that we are going live. That was an oversight. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so pleased that you are here. I'm so honored that you are here. And I'm truly hoping that you are doing well. Anken Ma'at, Anken Ma'at. Let me go ahead and say that I'm so honored to be here with you, especially after being a bit ill. And so that certainly was an effect. I'm still coughing. I'm still coughing. But I think that's just that's really just the remnant. So definitely, I can't say to you enough that the Neteru have brought me through. It was just the flu, so it's not. It wasn't a major thing, but it certainly sapped all of my energy, and in many ways, I'm still trying to recover a little bit. So those things certainly happened, and at the same time, I was still teaching, and so that was extremely difficult. I'm not sure how all of that worked, but it did, and so I am back to nearly full health. So I'm so pleased that you are here. I'm so pleased that you are with us for Kemetic Ascension. And so let me just go ahead and say what we always say when we begin. Please let us know how long you have been part of Kemetic Ascension and where in the world you are. I see Sinette Willinette. You know that Sinette Willinette, for those of you who are here, every Kemetic Ascension is residing in 3 different cities. That is a whole lot. I'm glad that things seem to be. I believe that when we last spoke, there were you had obviously some concerns about your residence in Los Angeles, but did everything come through unscathed? Please let us know. And I also know that LA got some rain, which was a big deal as well. And all of the fires are now 100% contained. So that's a really big deal. So often the media reported that story as if essentially what had happened is wealthy and popular actors and entertainers had their homes burned down. And that certainly did happen, but no one was really acknowledging that a historically Black neighborhood in Altadena was really horribly damaged by this fire. And so we should really think about those regular working class people of African descent who have lived there for a long time and were struggling. Hopefully we'll hear more about them. Anken Ma'at to Miss Mena, coming to us from Hattiesburg for 3 years, and she's a sacred woman. Anken Ma'at to you. Anken Ma'at to you. Jeffrey Rogers, I'm seeing you said you purchased The Origins of Africa. I'm not sure which one you were. I don't know Origins of Africa. Maybe you just have the title incorrect, but you actually purchased something. Please go ahead and send an email at jed@shrineofma'at.org, and I'll look for it. You can see I'm not in Harlem today, as you can see. And so definitely that means that I've had to rig something together so I can come together with you in a way that fits. Ankin Ma'at to Baron TV, Ankin Ma'at to Kamisha, who, as we know, is Sen Gavin, one of our full members coming to us in the DMV area. Ankin Ma'at to Heru Asar Amun Ra, coming to us from Dallas, Texas. Ankin Ma'at to one of our full members. Ankin Ma'at to how do you practice Kemetic spirituality. That is a very Baron TV. That is part of regularly attending Kemetic Ascension should help you in your practice. And you'll definitely know that it's one of those, this is one of those institutions that truly will assist you in becoming a high-level practitioner of the Kemetic tradition. So stick with us. There's no way for me to answer that. If there was an answer that was so easy that I could type it or say it in a few moments, then perhaps the tradition really wouldn't be very comprehensive. But definitely continuing to come to Kemetic Ascension, perhaps deciding if initiation is right for you. Those are all things that you might consider as well. Ankin Ma'at to Benita Sutton. It's so good that you're there, my sister. And yeah, I'm feeling much better, much better. I'm probably 95%. So it's not preventing me from doing everything. Although sometimes I fill my lungs with air and I have to cough. And that's just the remnants of what was left that needs to be removed. I'm taking my golden seal. The golden seal is helping considerably. Ankin Ma'at to Ronald Green from Alton, Illinois. It's good to see you out there. Ankin Ma'at to Luna. Wonderful to see you. Ankin Ma'at to Herajuti Pata Umika Temra. Ankin Ma'at. Illness kicked your butt too. Myrrh to you in Oakland, California. Ankin Ma'at from still toxins throughout Los Angeles County. Still toxins. Yes, definitely. My understanding is that obviously when buildings burn and cars burn and all of those things burn, it releases all sorts of things into the environment. So certainly the folks who were dealing with the fires in LA are not out of the woods. And of course, there are people whose homes were not burned who are also going to be affected in certainly a much longer term by all of those things that happen. So really, I'm hoping that folks continue to heal and get better. Ankin Ma'at to Wayne Elliott. Ankin Ma'at to Tone Johnson, one of our full members. Sinette Tone, coming to us from the DMV area. Ankin Ma'at to Jason Holmes. Send Jason, one of our full members, coming to us in Lincoln, Nebraska. These folks have been around for a long time. Ankin Ma'at to Mika One. You're interested in learning about sacred sex and Kemet. Hit here to learn. We're going to definitely talk considerably about the topic today. Generally, this period in February, we're either thinking about Black History Month or about Valentine's Day, Black Love Day, those things that occur around this time of month. So I decided to do a little bit on sacred sex. I think it's been a few years since I've done that in Kemetic Ascension. So we'll talk a little bit about it today. Ankin Ma'at to Sakina Ra, who is certainly one of our full and active members, coming to us from North Dakota. How are you, Sinette? I hope you're well. Ankin Ma'at to Jaman. We talk about where it says how much spiritual sex and teachings Kemet there is and how to search for maybe you ran out of space, Jaman. But we definitely how to search for a life progress. Definitely, if you come to Kemetic Ascension, we do make a contrast and comparison to the Abrahamic traditions, which are so prevalent in the world today. But certainly, we usually read from text. We usually talk to you about important text, how you can actually learn more about becoming a high-level practitioner. So certainly, if you continue to come to Kemetic Ascension, you'll learn more. Ankh Ma'at to Caleb Bryson, coming to us from Greensboro, North Carolina, and Ran Hits Raina, coming to us from Piscataway, New Jersey, not far from where I am right now. I'm in Perth Amboy. Ankh Ma'at to Johnny Falone. I'm not sure if I got that name correct. Please forgive me if I massacred the pronunciation of your last name. Coming to us from South Africa. I'm going to tell you, these days we often have one or maybe even a few people coming to us from South Africa. It is always the furthest away from where we are. So we want to say Ankh Ma'at to you, and we truly hope that you're doing well in South Africa. What is the current temperature where Sakina Ra is? That's interesting. That would be a very interesting question to answer. And Johnny in South Africa, could you tell us what time is it where you are? I'm wondering where you are and what the time is. That'd be interesting to me. Usar Karneb, peace and Ankh Ma'at to you. Born Eternal Lord Allah, Ankh Ma'at to you. Oh, your 14-year-old son has RSV, huh, Benita? Listen, it is rough. It is rough. Caleb, the Cash App, I've spoken to Cash App today, actually. They're still checking all of our documents with the IRS because we have an EIN number. The Shrine of Ma'at is a recognized nonprofit, so we're establishing a new Cash App. It's still not ready yet, and so I'm hoping that it'll be ready by our next Kemetic Ascension. There's so many things that have needed to be done in the shrine to just return us to where we were in terms of our administration, our accounts, and our website. I have spent a lot of time in the last 2 months doing that. Most of it is done, but the Cash App is still lingering, where they're checking our information because our Cash App is will be once again a business account, not a personal account. Personal accounts, you can start like this. Business accounts seem to take a little bit later. So you can certainly go ahead and send any donations you can to our PayPal. That would be helpful as well. Ankh Ma'at to Kent Keys, coming to us from upstate New York. Where are you coming again, Kent? I'm wondering where you are. Obviously, I have a history in upstate New York myself, having gone to college in upstate New York, and I continue to travel upstate New York regularly. So I always wonder where folks who are in upstate are. Ankh Ma'at to Ra. Hello, and Ankh Ma'at to you. Ankh Ma'at to Garrick Van, one of our full members coming to us from Phoenix, Arizona. Bennu, almost 9 years. It's been a while, has it not, dear Sen? It certainly has been a while. Give myrrh to your mate as well. Ankh Ma'at to Seek Energy Within in Colorado. And Ankh Ma'at to Anzania. Peace once again to you. Ankh Ma'at to you. I know you're coming to us from South Africa. One other person from South Africa. There's that coughing again. Ankh Ma'at. Oh, I see, Johnny, you're saying it's 1919, which is what? I think 20 is 8 o'clock. So it's a little after 7 where you are. So you're 7 hours ahead of us. That's a good distance. I mean, imagine it's a little after 12 noon for us right now. It's -6 where you are, Sakina Ra. I cannot complain that New York City and New Jersey got snow yesterday, and it was serious snow. I was driving home from a sort of an event that's preparing for Juneteenth here in New York City at Staten Island. Yes, there are Black folks in Staten Island doing their thing, and the drive home was a little harrying. And so I'm not going to complain. It's certainly not -6. It's probably approaching, it's 34 degrees right now. So it's a little over freezing, which is good. Ankh Ma'at to Dr. Siba Ka, one of our full members. Ankh Ma'at to you, dear Sinette. Dr. Siba Ka, it's wonderful that you're there. Miss Mena says that it's 77 degrees where she is. Miss Mena, where are you again that it's 77 degrees so we can all of us who are on the East Coast be upset with you? Ankin Ma'at to Geraldo, Antonio Butts, Ankin Ma'at to Zep Tepi Slim. Dua for me to that I'm back. Sanakt, would like to hear about Sanakt. I'm not sure who you're referring to, but Sanakt. Let me know. Let me know who you're referring to. I'm not sure who you're referring to. Ankin Ma'at to Jeffrey Rogers. It's 29 degrees in Detroit. Yeah, I can imagine. Ankin Ma'at to Adamium Curtis Jackson, one of our full members, coming to us. I think from Painesville, Ohio is where you are, I believe. Ankin Ma'at, one of our full members. Miss Meta, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I didn't realize Mississippi was, I know you're in the South, but that's a nice 77 degrees is a very comfortable day. That's nice weather. Wow. Ankin Ma'at to send William Humphrey, send Tahuti Forever, who has been trying to reach out to me. Send William, send Tahuti Forever. I must restore Ma'at with you. I have been kind of out of it. And when I'm not out of it, I've been struggling to maintain my college classes because I have an obligation. Obviously, I'm a professor. Teaching has been very difficult, not being 100%. So I've kind of been out of it. I'm coming back. I'm getting back to myself. I'm feeling much better. This weekend has been pretty good. So I'm glad that you're out there, and we still need to connect. Ankin Ma'at to Von Eric. Ankin Ma'at to Why I Oughta. What are your thoughts about reptilians? I'm not sure if I know what you mean. Reptilians exist. I mean, obviously we see snakes and alligators. Are you saying, I'm not sure what you're saying. I'm assuming you're talking about reptilians from sort of an esoteric level, or that they exist in some sort of humanoid form. I'm not sure what you're meaning, but definitely send me more. Ankin Ma'at to James Limba. 74 degrees in Murr from Charlotte, North Carolina. I did not realize that Charlotte had it that nice right now. 74 degrees. Because in Charlotte, you guys get snow, don't you? Charlotte snows. So for it to be 74 degrees in February, that is amazing. That sounds like it might be amazing. And I really hope that you all are all doing. Excuse me. See, it's still in here. It's working its way through, though. It just has to come up. I'm no longer sick. I just have to get my entire pulmonary system back to where it should be. Ankin Ma'at to Sidnick Productions. That's Sem M, one of our full members. Another excellent full member. Ankin Ma'at to you. Donnies Troy says, Ankin Ma'at family, go Birds. Donnies, are you in the Philadelphia area? Today is the Super Bowl, and I will be certainly tuning in. And I have to honestly say that I would be rooting for the Birds were it not the fact I just want to see a black quarterback do something that's never been done before. So if the Kansas City Chiefs win and we see a quarterback three-peat, that would be fascinating to me. So I guess that's kind of where I am. I'm slightly agnostic between the two teams, particularly because New York's teams have been so bad. But New York City's teams have been so bad. The Patriots did, the Bills did decently this year. But definitely, I actually am so excited that the Super Bowl is today because I like watching. Even though I'm not a gigantic football fan, I'm more a basketball, baseball fan. I do enjoy watching. So I know that Philly's going to be crazy. Philly is a city that I love. I really do enjoy being in Philly. Most of the South is having unusually warm weather. It was going to express the rising positive energy yesterday. Good to hear all of that. If it snows here, it's gone the next day. Yeah, I that's my understanding, James Limba. It really is. Human reptile forms that I can see that Star Trek showed us them. Yeah, you're probably talking about the Gorns. I'm a Star Trek fan. From the original series up to through the newer series. But I truly don't believe that they exist. Someone said Ankin Ma'at from New Jersey. Let's see. Mentu Ra, Ankan Ma'at to you. Ankan Ma'at to Eric Adams, coming to us from North Carolina. Ankan Ma'at to Ronald Green and Nathaniel Crawford. The changing national anthem during the Super Bowl is a huge statement. I have a lot. I'm going to be so excited to see how it looks. And Ankan Ma'at to Swamanda Sparks from South Africa, another South person from South Africa. We get quite a few these days. It's definitely an area that is on my list of places to visit really soon. Well, anyway, let me say Ankan Ma'at to you all. I'm so pleased that you've chosen to spend some time with us for Kemetic Ascension. And I'd like for us to go ahead and begin. I'd like for us to go ahead and begin the way that we begin. That is with the ritual that was brought into existence by our elder, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Pata, the opening of the way. I just put the StreamYard link in the chat. If you'd like someone who knows the opening the way well, I'm probably talking to one of the fully initiated members of the Shrine of Ma'at, could come in and do the opening of the way with us. That would be magnificent if you did. But if not, I'll lead you in the opening the way as well. Is there someone that might want to come in, someone who is a full member of the shrine that would love to come in and do the opening the way for us? It is of critical importance when you do this. Just because I really hope that we're not always spending, in this current iteration of Kemetic Ascension, it certainly has had way too much of me. But I would really love to see more of our members like we did the last time we gathered. The last few times we've had someone do the opening of the way. Would someone like to do the opening of the way for us? Please click that link from StreamYard and come on in. It would be amazing for you to do it. Do we have any takers? Particularly because the opening of the way is that ceremony that reminds us just how powerful and important we are, reminds us that we are entities imbued with divine energy, that we are the universe, that we are the Neteru. Sen M, you're saying you would, but you're too shy? What? That's not the Sen M I know. Maybe just in our one-on-one conversations, we have lots of great conversations. I would never, if I was thinking of the adjectives that would describe my brother Sen M, who I've known probably 15 years, shy would not be one of the words that I would use. Are you shy? Do you see yourself as shy? Please, I would love for one of you to come in who are the full members. Come on now. Camera shy. Don't you work in videography? Oh, you're used to being behind the camera, maybe. I think that I can see that. I can see that. Well, let's go ahead. I'm going to do the opening of the way today. We'll just do it. We're not going to wait much longer. Let's go ahead and come on in. And you should also recognize that even if I was going to lead, some of you could come in and do it with me. That's also something else that we could do. Please go ahead and in preparation for the opening of the way, go ahead and put yourself in what we call the position of adoration, the pose of adoration. Stand with your left foot forward, almost like you're about to take a step, right? Left foot forward. And then what you're going to do is you're going to expose your palms in front of you. The right palm should be a bit further forward than the left palm, and the left palm should be a bit further forward than the right palm, and the right palm can also be a little further down. Don't break your wrists like this. Sometimes I see people doing that, and I have never seen anyone on the papyri or in temple walls or even in the tombs of ancient Kemet with their hands in that manner. Just if you're going to break them ever so slightly, okay? And from here, what you're going to do is you're going to take a breath from your diaphragm. This might not be easy for me with my coughing, but then go ahead and release the sound of Ankh. Ankh is the term for everlasting divine life, and that is how we should begin. Anetrak in Bedhet, Nuke in Bedhet, Anetrak Happy, Nuke Happy, Twawinter, turn to your right. Anetrak Serket, Nuke Serket, Anetrak Kebsenuf, Nuke Kebsenuf, Twawinter. Netrak Ast, Nuke Ast, Netrak Amset, Nuke Amset, Twawinter. Netrak Neat, Nuke Neat, Netrak Dwamutef, Nuke Dwamutef, Twawinter. Netrak Newt, Newt, Netrak Geb, Nuke Geb, Twawinter. Netrak Shoe, Nuke Shoe, 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 Shoe. I should say Nuke Shoe here. Nuke Shoe. Netrak Tefnut, 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 Nuke Tefnut, Twawinter. Netrak Paut Interu, Nuke Paut Interu. Netrak and Boo Interu, Nuke and Boo Interu, Twawinter. Twawinter. I am so surprised that my coughing did not take hold of me. But I was able to complete without going into coughing fits. Twawinter for that. Ankad Ma'at to Sinet. Oh, I'm sorry. Hemet Netter Sishat, who is there under Shrine of Sekhmet. Ankad Ma'at to you. Ankad Ma'at. We still have to get up. I'm feeling better, so we'll definitely speak within the next day or so, hopefully. Ankad Ma'at to Jeremiah Johnson. I think I might have said Ankad Ma'at to you already. Ankad Ma'at to, isn't that usually New Kemetic Spectrum? I might be saying that wrong. Ankad Ma'at to Black Ace coming to us from Buffalo, New York. Now, I wonder whether you got snow yesterday, because I know that most of the snow was north, but I think it might have been in a band so that you didn't get walloped. When Buffalo gets snow, for those of you who are not in the New York area or nearby, when Buffalo gets snow, they get real snow. In New York City, we complain if we get a few inches, but Buffalo has gotten feet. And so they're used to snow to some degree. And believe it or not, sometimes people say, yeah, that's all those white people. There are a lot of black people who live in Buffalo. You better stop it. And they deal with the snow. Those are some intrepid brothers and sisters up there, right? Because you know we tend to be sun people. So being in an area where it snows excessively is tough for us. But we in Buffalo, there's a very old and very organized Black community. So I know that you must be doing well. Ronald Garrison boarding for JFK en route to Accra. Really? Wow. Ronald Garrison, please. I have not been to Accra in over a year. Have not been to Ghana in over a year. I miss Ghana dearly. So definitely, I'm hoping that I will be back in Ghana, perhaps in maybe May or April. I'm planning on going, and it'll just be a small trip. It won't necessarily be a group trip, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. Inpu Inpu M Inpu Mdwa. Let me go ahead and say I'm not sure why I'm messing up your name today. Ankan Ma'at to you, one of our full members. Sometimes I call him a young elder. Does a lot of work. Inpu Mdwa. Really am so honored that you're here. Ankan Ma'at. Ankan Ma'at to New Chem. Hotep Hotep. Oh, Kwame Ronald Garrison. You Kwame Ron. I don't know why I didn't make the connection. My brain must still be idled. Ankan Ma'ati, you're heading to Ghana. Please, when you get there, give Nana Kwa David a gigantic hug. I have not seen him in a while, although we've chatted a little bit via WhatsApp. I miss him dearly. Please go over there. Kwame Ron is actually, myself, Anika, we were actually made nanas, made chiefs and queen mother together. So we are part of the same family. Kwame Ron, we had lots of fun together when we were in Ghana. And so I'm really hoping that things are going well for you and that your trip is going to be amazing. Let us know how long you're going to be there as well. It's a shame. If I had known you were going, maybe I could have met you at, well, you don't live that. Well, yeah, you do. Kwame Ron, I'm pretty sure that you are in, oh goodness, in Ohio, right? You're in Ohio, right? So I don't know if you stayed over in New York City. Next time when you come, we should know. We could at least maybe grab some food when you're coming towards JFK. Ankama to sovereignty of thought. Once again from South Africa. We have some folks coming to us from South Africa. And we also see Tawanga Tembo from Zambia. We're getting some Southern African family, which is wonderful, wonderful. Hero Jehuti Pata says, met one of the finest dark-skinned sisters from Buffalo years ago. Yes, there are a lot of wonderful people in Buffalo. Ankan Ma'at to one of the members of the Wenwet. I still haven't spoken to him much recently, but he's been in Kemetic Ascension. You see him there as Rodman B. Moore. You know that he is Hemnetter Ka. And he is really, really missed dearly. I'd love to grab a bite to eat with you soon because I haven't seen you in such a long time. It's good to know that you're out there. Please give myrrh to your mate who was a member of the shrine and those beautiful kids. I'm hoping all is well with you. Ankan Ma'at to Jamie Jania. Ankan Ma'at to Sanette Adrian, who was one of our full members. It's been a while. Ankan Ma'at to you. Ankan Ma'at to 24. Leaving that cesspool. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Ankan Ma'at to Robert James and Kimberly Blue, one of our full members. Robert James coming to us from London. It's always good to see you from across the pond, as we say. Ankan Ma'at, Ankan Ma'at, Ankan Ma'at. Well, let's move into things. I guess I spent more time greeting folks because I was not here last time. And I missed you, and I missed this gathering. I missed this community not being gathered by Kemetic Ascension. But obviously, you know that when we gather, we obviously do the opening of the way, and we also engage in what we can only call Hessie. Hessie is so important and such an incredible part of the practice of Kemetic spiritual practitioners. And so today what I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure that you are able to hear a Hessie that is connected to our topic, right? Today we're talking a bit about sacred section, ancient Kemet. So this is a Hessie that is actually written for the divine Netert, the divine female netter that is connected to love and beauty and music. The Greeks call her Hathor. Some of you know that name Hathor, but as higher level practitioners, you probably know the name Het Heru. That is the term, that is the name that this powerful female Neter had been consecrated, had been worshipped, had been called upon for thousands of years before the Greeks even came into existence. So please listen to what we call the Het Heru Hessie, the Het Heru Hessie. Please enjoy. Can you hear? I hope you can. Oh boy, I am always really filled when I'm actually able to hear, oh, the Schaefers are here. Oh, I was just about to say, I am always filled up when I hear Kenya's voice, and I know that Sen Charles is backing her up on the drums and with the production. And I believe that was his voice also in the background there. This wonderful couple has done amazing work with the shrine, and that is an incredible Hessie. Het Hedru, Nefer Henamur, which means something like Het Hedru, the deity Het Hedru. Nefer means beauty, could mean beauty or for perfection. Nefer Henna is like and, Mur, love, beauty and love. Nefer Henna Mur. And clearly, this Hessie is one of those things you can imagine that as a group sings it, they'll sing it in a round. One group perhaps will start a little bit later than the other. And so they'll all be going into that Nefer Henna Mur at different points. And it is absolutely beautiful. And I really love this particular Hessie, I believe, was written by Hemet Netter and Tepi Anika. And it was absolutely well done and well mastered by the Schaefers. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Dua to all of those involved in bringing this forward. It is part of the album that you know that the Shrine of Ma'at did with the Schaefers called Kemetic Meditations, Temple Music Volume 1. It's pretty much on every streaming platform, and it is magnificent. So I'm truly hoping that you listen to it. Hessie is a very important tool in our practice as Kemetic spiritual practitioners. Hessie is gospel before there was a gospel, gospel before there was a Bible or even a Torah. Hessie is the way that these ancient African spiritual practitioners used song and used affirmation to connect them with particular principles and particular fundamental divine powers so they could do their work. And so I'm hoping that you bring these things into your repertoire as well. This particular one is absolutely beautiful. They're all beautiful, but this particular one connects very well with the energy that we'll be talking about in a moment. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. Dua once again to the Schaefers, who I believe are still in Kemet. And I'm so honored that they did this incredible work here with us today. There were a bunch of things that came through. If I've missed you, please forgive me. It's chalk it up to my eyes and not my heart. Ankenma to Mac Tip and Afromantic and Liontine's Baby and Kevin Simmons and Dr. Quantum and I'm hoping that I've gotten through much of this. When can we expect volume 2? We really do need to talk about that so that we're able to begin to really, really, really add more to these wonderful Hessies. Anken Ma'at Tehem Netter Jamar as well, who is there. Anken Ma'at to you. Let's go into what we're meant to speak of today. And that, as you know, is a particular topic that is of great note. And it is sacred sex in ancient Kemet. I'm really hoping that you all are going to get a lot out of this. This time of the year, people are often thinking about love and thinking about connections with people and thinking about how they can celebrate those people who they are in intimate relationships with. And I really want to say to you that this is an amazing part of the year. We should not feel that we are being controlled by those holidays and those dates that Western people, that this society has put forward. But at the same time, we should also be aware that we still live in a secular world, right? And so pretending that all of these things don't affect us at all is probably not realistic either. So this is a good time, I always feel, to talk a bit about sacred sex and sexuality. Of course, we could be talking about Black Love Day or or a coma day, or even if you like Valentine's Day. I mean, I know Valentine's Day is more connected to the society that we are inhabiting, but recognize that all of these concepts, in many ways, are poor copies of those most fundamental ideas that were put forth in ancient Africa, and thankfully were written, were drawn, were imagined in ancient Kemet. So today, let's talk briefly about sacred sex and sexuality in Kemet. I don't plan to be here that long, so maybe we'll talk for about a half hour about these topics, and you'll try to find ways again to work this into your life. So let's talk about part one: divine sex and divine origins. I want us to understand that as we are talking about the idea of sexuality in Kemet, it operates radically differently than it does in the Western world. And the Western world, as you know, so much of the world beyond even the Western world has been so greatly influenced by the Abrahamic traditions. The Abrahamic traditions tend to have a very negative view of sexuality, a very negative view. And in many ways, sex is something that is not necessarily connected to a spiritual practice. Sexuality is something that people who are imbued with divine energy in the conception of the Abrahamic traditions should refrain from. We know we see nuns and priests, and they don't engage in any intercourse. The nuns and the priestesses and priests of ancient Kemet only refrained from sexuality during the time that they were on duty. Other than that, they had intercourse and were married and had children. In that sense, there's a different conception of sex and sexuality. The priest in ancient Kem, the priestess in ancient Kem, refrained from sexuality because their energy was going to another type of creation during this period that they were on duty. Not because sexuality was dirty, not because sexuality was something that was not divine. In fact, as you look at this, you are going to notice that in the great stories of ancient Kemet, in the stories where we see the creation of the universe, the maintenance of the universe by divine energies that we call the Neteru, the divine powers of Kemet, you will see that each of those entities engages in intercourse. Yes, the gods have sex. I know that those terms are Western. We would not usually use the word gods, but I'm hoping that you understand it in a way that you may be more familiar, being individuals who are present in the Western world. The Neteru have divine intercourse. Look at these two creation stories. You're going to see the creation story of Iunu, and you're seeing Nun, and you'll see Nunet. You will see that these deities have intercourse in order to create the world. Iunu was that place that, by the way, was called Heliopolis, the city of the sun, by the Greeks. And then when we get to another major city with another major institution for spiritual practice, the city that the Kemetic people called Kemenu, which is the city of Jehuti, by the way, Kemenu. The Greeks ended up calling it Hermopolis because they view Jehuti as Hermes. This place is called the Eight Town because in their creation story, they have pairs of twins that engage in divine intercourse to create and maintain the universe. They are sometimes called the Agodad by the Greeks. We have Nun, there's a typo there. There's Nun and Nunet. There's He and Hauhet. There's Kuk and Kalket. And there's Amun and Amunet. These deities they exist in the primordial waters, and they are representations of nothingness and of potential and of all of those fundamental ideas, concepts that must be present at a time before the world is populated by things. They actually operate in the primordial waters in darkness they create. I want you to recognize that each of these deities, obviously, in the creation of the universe, are known to engage in intercourse. So, sex is not something that is regrettable in the Kemetic conception. It is something that is necessary. How else do you combine male and female energy to create? It would have to be a sexual process. Well, in the Western world, that is frowned upon. It does not happen that way. In the earlier African world, we see that our African ancestors were not uncomfortable with this, such an important process which creates all things. Let's go into part 2, sacred sex and sacred relationships. This is a truncated version of a larger presentation, you should know. But take a look at this. I want us to understand that we're not going to just think about sexuality on the level of the neteru. How did intercourse, how did love, how did the connectedness between partners, between people who were in sacred relationships actually occur? Well, obviously, marriage was an important part of the Kemetic tradition. Couples engaged in this institution and created families with it. And I want us to recognize that in the Kemetic world of thousands of years ago, we even see, this is quite interesting to me, that women are not subordinate in marriage, that they are full and equal partners. This is fascinating because it isn't until just recently in the Western world that women are beginning to be seen as full and equal partners in marriages. For such a long period of time in the Western world, to be married was to be the property of one's husband, right? That's how it was viewed. It's the reason why women in the Western world take their husbands' names. It's also the reason why a dowry is paid. It's also the reason why in the Western world that just up until recently, I was born in 1972, even during the time that I have been alive in the early to mid 70s, it was still the norm that if a woman wanted to purchase property, she would have to get the signatures of her husband or even her brother or her father because women were secondary. In the Kemetic tradition, that is not what we see. We actually see that women hold property, women can be full entities in court, and they can even get divorced. Remarriage is also allowed, even though it was not the ideal in ancient Kemet. You should know that infidelity was greatly frowned upon, and that royal marriages were absolutely important because the throne of Kemet was matrilineal. That means the way in which a king comes into power is based on his relationship with the woman that is the caretaker of the sacred bloodline. And so marriages were of critical importance. We do see that the kings of Kemet practiced polygamy. That is something that we certainly see as well. And they even had harems, groups of women who were lesser wives that were connected to the king. But it doesn't seem that the queens had something similar. This is something that is different by gender in ancient Kemet. We actually see that Amenhotep III, a king during the New Kingdom, the king that could be considered the grandfather of Tutankhamen, actually received 270 wives from the Asian king Tushratta. He had thousands of women in the harem. Now, I want to be clear, that does not mean that he had intercourse with all of them, or maybe even any of them. It doesn't mean that that these women wives in the traditional sense, but we do see that their polygamy of this sort was accepted amongst the kings. I want to be very clear, though, for the most part, virtually all of the people other than the king and the queen were in singular relationships. Sometimes we focus extensively on the polygamy practiced amongst the kings when we should recognize at any given time we're talking about just one family. The overwhelming majority, 99% of the people in Kemet, were had families that were based on a husband and a wife. And so we do not see that sort of polygamy was common in that sense. So this is important. Recognize that the idea of procreation was also very important, because creating lineages was important as well, as in many ways it is even in the Western world. Take a look at this beautiful couple, by the way, on the right. This statue of this couple is in the Brooklyn Museum. This wonderful couple is Neb Sen and Neb Ta. It's a beautiful statue of an African couple with their African features and their full African hair. And I'm going to say to you that obviously this couple was so beloved because this statue does not come from either the husband or the wife's tomb. It was found in one of their children's tombs. So we know that this is connected to the son's love of his parents. I want you to know Nebsen and Nebet Ta were not royal, but they were important people in ancient Kemet during the 18th dynasty. What do we know about medicine and sexuality? You should know that the world's first doctors, not just in Kemet, but the world's first doctors usually practiced in ways that were connected to fertility and to reproduction very often. And that Kemet's first doctors are generally the world's first recorded doctors. We see specialists of every different type from a very early period. And some of the specialties that we see that are connected to our conversation is we see doctors, physicians that are connected to the female reproductive system. Two of these names are Merit Ptah, who was the chief of physicians in 2700 BCE, and also Lady Paseshet, who lived around 2600 BCE. And she was the chief of female physicians. So these names are extremely important. These are powerful ladies who were recognized as some of the most important doctors in ancient Kemet. By the way, just imagine that some of the earliest doctors we have that are recorded are both male and female in ancient Africa, that being a quote unquote doctor, a physician, was not restricted to men in ancient Kemet and in ancient Africa. One of the earliest papyruses we have that is still extant, the earliest medical papyrus, is called the Kahun Gynecological Papyrus, and it deals with the female reproductive system. So obviously, in the most important spiritual arts and medical arts of ancient Kemet was the importance of sexual and reproductive health. This is important. We also see in ancient Kemet a variety of prophylactic and sexual tools, everything from medicinal aids for fertility, including the use of many plants and honey and wine and dates. These were all used to facilitate fertility in ancient Kemet. And we also see that the Kemetic people recognized that intercourse was also for pleasure, meaning that if you had intercourse, you might want to forestall having a child at a particular time, but that wasn't seen as a negative. So we see a large array of contraceptive medications that were used in ancient Kemet. Everything from a cloth pessary. A pessary is something that actually goes into the female vagina, so that when intercourse occurs, the sperm do not reach the egg. The cloth pessary in ancient Kemet, by the way, pessary is not an ancient African term; it's a Western medical term. The cloth pessary was usually inundated with honey, or other resins, and even crocodile dung. Now, I know that sounds strange, but I want you to understand they didn't just take feces from the crocodile and stick it in one's vagina. It was prepared because it had properties that would kill sperm. And so these medical practices were utilized in Kemet so that sex could be something that one could enjoy and not simply for reproduction. We also see so many other tools that are gynecological, even a process, a procedure, a test that allowed Kemetic physicians to indicate whether a woman was pregnant. And it even gave these doctors the ability to tell the gender of the child. When do we hear that in the modern world? The oldest pregnancy test, the oldest and most effective pregnancy test in the ancient world came to us from ancient Africa through Kemet. And this is of critical importance. Just recognize how important sex and birth and intercourse is. Look at the top here. We're actually seeing an image of Het Heru in her bovine form, in her female lion, in female cow form, actually assisting with rebirth here. We can see that these two versions of these two great ladies are helping a woman on a birthing stool give birth. And this area, by the way, you should know, also connects to a tomb. So you can get the sense that even when one makes their transition in death, they are being reborn through a semi-reproductive process. The idea of birth is not dirty. The idea of sex is not dirty. The idea of the female reproductive system is not dirty. This is something that the youngest people on the planet have now promulgated to the rest of the planet. When I say that the female reproductive system is considered dirty in the Western world, just imagine that when we see images of the products that are used for women during their menstrual cycle, those are called in the Western world sanitary products, as if there's something dirty that needs to be cleaned. And even in addition to that, recognize that when female sanitary products are even being advertised on television, it's only until maybe the last 2 years that they have even been allowed to use a liquid that is red in color. Do you know that one company that was making sanitary products had the nerve to say, have a happy period, and they would have a sentence that said that, and at the end there was a red dot, and there were protests. There were protests because people did not want to think about the reproductive system of the woman. How can anyone think that something that creates all human life, all biological life, could be dirty? The youngest people on the planet, the people from Europe, have gotten the wrong message, and they have promulgated that message to the elders of the planet. And thusly, we are out of balance. It is time for the elders of the planet to practice their traditions once more. As you look at this, I want you to recognize there were a variety of tools and practices that were used in getting into the correct mood to engage in intercourse in ancient Kemet. Everything from alcoholic beverages. You're seeing actually King Tutankhamun on the upper right give a beverage to his wife. And you also see in his other hand, we're going to talk more about this later, that he actually has a particular the blue lotus plant, because the blue lotus plant had psychoactive properties, almost like a lower version of marijuana. And so they were going to get a bit lifted and engage in intercourse. We also see beautiful maidens on the top right, nude in the temple, playing music. So these were connected to sexual and sensuality. We see down below reflexology being utilized. This is also something that was connected to health and sexuality. And we see images that are connected to recognizing divine sex on the bottom left. Let's continue. Let's decode intimacy in sacred Kemetic art. As you're seeing here, I want you to recognize that this king is engaged in in the process of intercourse with Heteru on the left. And as you look at this, do you notice that she has this heavy beaded necklace and her hand is in the middle of it? She has a left hand on a right arm, and she also is giving it towards this king who has what looks to be the right arm on a left hand. This is a sacred sexual circuit, and that necklace that she is wearing is called a menat. It's a heavy beaded necklace, and philosophically, it was connected to the labia, the female labia. So we're seeing a secret sexuality encoded in this beautiful art that the uninitiated eye might not be able to recognize. This is all throughout Kemetic art. And if you don't know what you're seeing, you just don't know what you're seeing. You should recognize that sex was not frowned upon in ancient Africa. Our sexual organs were not seen as dirty. Of course, I will always argue if you see your sexual organs as dirty, when no one's looking, you may do dirty things with it. But if you see your sexual organs as something that is sacred, something that we should not be embarrassed about, something that we should not see as not connected to the divine, then you will do divine work even in your intercourse. This fundamental thinking, philosophy, comes to us from ancient Kemet, but has unfortunately been greatly lost in the Western world. Obviously, we see that sex and sexuality are important. Look at these two statues. One on the left is sometimes called the Bird Lady. Clearly, you can see that the one on the right may not be exactly the same divine female goddess or divine female netert, but I want you to recognize that they all have, in many ways, things that connect them to reproduction. Notice that they both have hanging breast. This is because they are women or they are divine female entities that have nurtured. Notice their hips and their thighs. This is supposed to be ladies who are sexual and fertile. So I want you to understand that in ancient Kemet, the idea of female sexuality was sacred and beautiful, not dirty and regrettable. Recognize that these are so old that we don't even know their names. We just know that we see these divine feminine ladies in the pre-dynastic world of ancient Kemet. It is of critical importance for us to recognize that the earliest deities in Kemet were female. The earliest deities in the entire world were female, and they were connected to fertility. Their fertility was not something that was denied. Here's another piece that I'd love to talk to you about. Take a look at this box. This is a golden shrine box that belonged to Tutankhamen. The entire thing is probably about 3 feet tall. I've actually seen it. I've actually seen it in Kemet, in the Cairo Museum, and it was brought here not too long ago at the Discovery Exposition Center in Manhattan. They brought the box as well. It's a beautiful box with many scenes around it, a shrine box There probably was a statue that went into it, but we don't know where that statue is. Perhaps it has been lost or stolen. I want you to understand that it is made of wood and then gilded, meaning that it is plated in gold. It is absolutely magnificent. And every single scene on this wonderful box is connected to sexuality. This is fascinating. You can see one side on the left, one side on the right. You should know that Tutankhamen and his wife, they were absolutely trying to bear an heir. They were trying to have a child. And so at almost every scene where you see them together, you're going to see them engaging in and not actually engaging in intercourse, but doing things that should be leading up to intercourse in divine symbolism. Even notice that on this side, you might notice that once again, you're seeing that Manat. You see Ankhesenamun, the wife of Tutankhamen, with a Manat go towards her husband, and her husband is giving that Manat divine energy. If you know what you are looking for, you will recognize what you are seeing. But the untrained eye will not understand what this is. Only the initiated eye will be able to recognize just how profound these images are and what their ultimate purpose is. Let's look at one of the scenes. This is just one of the scenes that will take some time to look at. But I love this scene because if you look closely, you'll notice that there's some things that seem not to make sense, that don't seem to connect with a naturalistic image. You recognize right off the bat, something else must be going on here. Obviously, you see Ankhesenamun, the queen of King Tutankhamen, excuse me, sitting below, and she is pointing towards her husband, who is seated on a stool, and it seems like they're on some sort of hunting trip, right? You can see that Tutankhamen has a bow and an arrow, and he's shooting it at some birds. Notice that the birds are on top of a lotus thicket. Can you see the plants there? Excuse me. Oh, goodness. Trying to deal with this cough, boy. So you should know that this is occurring in an aquatic area because the lotus grows in a marshy area. And he's striking at these birds. You'll even notice that the birds have eggs on top of the thicket. All of this is unusual. What is going on here? Is she just helping him hunt? She's giving him arrows. No, something more is happening. And you can recognize that it's not strictly a hunting scene, because right off the bat, how in the world could he use this bow? You notice that it's drawn around his head? Obviously, this is not a naturalistic scene. Something else on the allegorical level is going on. And to add to this, I want you to recognize that below his arm, you are seeing the symbols. This triangular symbol is a symbol for D, excuse me, or to give. And then next to it, you recognize the Ankh. You recognize the symbol of divine life. So how could he be killing birds while it says give life? Does that not seem counterintuitive? Understand that this scene is not actually hunting in the same way that you could imagine. You'll notice that Ankhesenamun is lively giving arrows to her husband at the level of his groin. You can see that he is now shooting, and the word for shooting in the ancient Kemetic language was seti, seti. I want you to know that as he is doing this, obviously there's another meaning, because the word for ejaculation is also seti. So then if we think of this not as a hunting scene, but as a scene that has to deal with intercourse, now things begin to make sense, because clearly he is giving life, not taking it. Clearly, we also see an aquatic scene. You should know that aquatic scenes in Kemetic art are usually connected to reproduction and to sexuality. Why is that, Brother Jabari? Well, clearly it's because all life begins in water. All life begins in the flood. That's the reason why the flood has been so important in so many different traditions around the world. Not because there actually have been floods that are of note, but because in many ways it is divine allegory. Because when the baby comes, we see the flood. We see the water break. Obviously, all life begins in the flood. Now you can see that Ankh-Senamun is giving her husband the means to shoot into the bush and telling him where to do it. Now you know this is sexuality. And Tutankhamen is depicted as virile. Look at the lion at his stool. Clearly, you must understand this is a sacred sexual scene. How do you incorporate these things into your life? This is a question that you must ask yourself as someone who is also trying to create, someone who is also trying to ensure that one's family is strong and that you can actually engage in amorous activities with one's mate. These are of critical importance. We must ask ourselves, who is Het Heru? Who is that divine lady who is connected to intercourse? You should know that she is known by many names: the Lady of the Sycamore, the Golden Lady. She's even known as the Divine Cow. She is one of the most ancient deities of Kemet. She is likely connected to the deity that was once known as Bat. You'll notice at the top of Palit's Namur, the world's first historical document, you're going to see a bovine lady at the top. This is a version of Het Heru known as Bat. She is one of the oldest deities of Kemet. Music is sacred to her. In fact, when you see that priestesses and sometimes even priests are using that divine rattle that the Romans ended up calling the sistrum, recognize that this rattle, which the Kemetic people called the shesheta, it's an onomatopoeic word. It's a word that's created for how it sounds, shesheta, shesheta. This is connected to divine Het Heru as well. Look at this beautiful image of her on this divine rattle. Absolutely beautiful. The menat, or that necklace that we showed you, is sacred to her. And here is the menat. Remember, we talked about that heavily beaded necklace. You should be able to see the labia now as you look at it. You should know that she is the Lady of Beauty. You'll often see mirrors. This particular mirror, I believe, is in the Metropolitan Museum. Look at Het Heru in her half human female, half bovine form. Look at the ears there. And you're seeing there that is gold. Remember, she's the golden lady. And the mirror surface is highly polished. You should know that the mirror was connected to beauty, connected to intimacy, connected to health, and also connected to intercourse in this fashion as well. And I think that mirror is just absolutely magnificent. I always think it's interesting that when we look at mirrors, some of the world's oldest mirrors are in Kemet. And as you look at the names that the Kemetic people used for these devices, sometimes they were simply called an ankh. But one of the words is merher. One of the words for mirror is merher. I truly believe that the word mirror in the English language is a derivation of this ancient African word. It has traveled down into the ancient world. Het Heru is the wife of Heru. She is the divine symbol of beauty and magic and sound and harmony. I also want you to understand that when we're talking about the priest, I think I talked about this a little bit. We should know that the priest did not engage in intercourse during their temple term, but that we know that when they returned home, Of course, they engaged in intercourse because they were married and they had children, and so sex and sexuality was not dirty. But one recognized in the Kemetic philosophical system that the energy of creation is a very, very powerful, very, very onerous energy. And so when one is in doing work in the temple, that energy is not used for procreation, but it is used for procreation outside of the temple. This is extremely important. You should know that women are also not supposed to serve during their menses, because this is part of their reproductive process. They would do this later. They would serve during the time that they weren't on their menses. They also cared for the home of the Neteru in the temple, and this is important as well. Creative energies were harnessed for the use of the entire kingdom. So here's a final question. How can you use sacred sex during this period? I want you to recognize that the Kemetic idea of sex and sexuality was so comprehensive that when you engage in this during this period, whether you're focused on a Coma Day or Valentine's Day or Black Love Day, please recognize that you should also try to be comprehensive in your use. Use the five senses at least in your day, and hearing and seeing and tasting, smelling and touching. All of these things should be connected to the manner in which you are going to bring sacred sexuality into your divine relationships during this period. So I stayed here longer than I was going to. I want to say to you, it is important for us to recognize that sexuality, that intimacy is a sacred art, and that your Kemetic ancestors viewed it as such. Sexuality was not something that was dirty or forbidden or less than sacred in the ancient African world. That is what the youngest people on the planet have done. Haven't you noticed that you can actually see that the Neteru, you can see them nude? You actually see the erect henenen, the erect phallus of the divine male Neteru. People in the modern world think that that is nasty. In fact, the one in the British Museum of Min had his penis removed so they could put it on display. They literally took an ancient artifact, a beautiful statue, and damaged it as not to harm the sensibilities of these puritanical Europeans. Well, I'm going to say to you, you are not a puritanical European. You are an African seeking to learn from and practice the greatest of the traditions of our African ancestors that go back tens of thousands of years. Don't be afraid of sex and sexuality. Don't think that it is not connected to your divine work. In fact, it is the origin of your divine work. During this period, enjoy it. Celebrate those people those mates that you're in intimate relationships with. Celebrate them and enjoy them. With that, I say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Please go forth and do some amazing things today and moving forward. I'll see you soon. Shemem Matap.